Hi, everybody. Give your neighbor a high five and say, glad that you made it. Glad that you're here. You guys are so awkward. So awkward. Listen, I'm so excited to be with you. Can y'all clap your hands for my friend, Dr. Walter, Elijah, Rock, shout, shout, Boston Jr. No, no, no.
I like The Rock. I like
Yeah,
it. I like it.
Elijah Rock.
Yeah, yeah.
Listen, excited. They talked about your bio. I know many of your friends and family or friends are here. So to talk about yourself, I mean, you want to,
Not gonna do it.
you're not going to do it?
No.
No, I'm just going to say just flow whatever you want me to do, man of God. Oh, my
I
God.
do want to say something though before you move on.
Yes, whatever you have.
I thought something really cool tonight.
Okay.
You know, how is this that we're talking about move on, refuse to be stuck at the movement
At
center.
the Movement Center. That was clever.
That's,
That was clever.
that's pretty
I didn't
cool.
think about it like that. That was clever.
Yeah, I thought I'd bring you up to speed. You know?
I know. Were you being shady? So tell me about this. So that sounds good, but tell me, how did we get to this moment? Like, how did we get to this book called Move On? Tell me about that.
Wow, quite interesting. You know, over the last 2 years, 2017 to 18, as I was traveling and doing meetings, I started to note that people were hanging around and wanting prayer as usual over a number of issues. And it seemed to have become a common theme. Everybody was saying, you know what, I need you to pray for me because I feel stuck.
Mm.
I just kept hearing the word. And so I started to talk to the Lord about it. And just at the end of last year, he began to download some stuff. And
Wow.
that's how I started to write this.
Wow. I mean, excellent book. I've been through it. I have been through it, and I've read the book. Some people don't think I read, but I do read. You had several stories in there that I thought were pretty phenomenal and potent. Tell me about this. As we talk about stuck, how does that relate to the purpose question? Because many times people feel they're stuck because they don't know how to get to the next. So talk about that in regards to.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it does not prevent purpose because you're stuck. It actually may confirm your purpose, something that's going on in your life. You're trying to get there, but you have these seasons where you get in a place and you can't move.
Mm.
Some of that is self-imposed. Some of that is the enemy.
Mm.
Some of that, and here's what we don't always want to hear, but some of that's actually designed.
Wow.
It's designed by the Father that we're in a particular place. So that process, here we go, introduces us to pain. Pain helps us to actually get a hold of some realities concerning ourselves and concerning his will for our lives. And with that, we're able to move forward into what God wants.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story that I read in the book. One of your friends, I hope they're not here tonight, was supposed to get out the car and couldn't get out the car because they were stuck.
Yeah,
In the,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It wasn't me because I know I'm getting big.
I
don't think it
I was going to expose you, but since you said it
No, I
wasn't.
couldn't. Yeah, yeah. But I think about that because I think their shoe was stuck or something like that.
Yeah.
Which relates to the fact that sometimes we could be entangled and not even know we're entangled, and when it's time to move, we can't move on.
Absolutely.
Because we're stuck. So
Absolutely. We were riding along. We were having a conversation. We got to the restaurant. He got out. I got out. He tried to get out. And he could not move. His shoe was stuck. And then on top of that, the frustration of his shoe being stuck or his shoestring being stuck, he lost his ability to think logically
wow.
about how to get unstuck. So here we have now a man with a master's degree. We're consulting about some things, and there's a lot of laughter that's starting to brew behind this. People are watching this guy twist and turn, move in the same place for almost a minute.
And can't get out.
I had to go over and say, hey, dude, what are you doing?
And that was when you were trying to hold back the chuckles.
Man, it was so funny. But that incited something else. He became disturbed by the fact that I'd asked that question. And then I just simply said, hey, why don't you just pull your shoe off? Something as simple as
Something
that.
simple.
Yeah, and then you won't remain stuck. And he did that. And, of course, ultimately he calmed down, and on the way in, he started to laugh.
But many people are stuck, but they don't have someone to give them a simple word of mobilization that says, just take your shoe off.
Yeah.
So talk to the people who feel like, I feel like like he's frustrated,
Yeah.
and he's even more frustrated because everybody's watching him be frustrated,
Yeah.
and he didn't know how to get out of frustration, and
Yeah.
yet you're like, come on, it's like I can't.
Yeah.
Talk to what do you say to people who don't have a Dr. Boston to say just take your shoe off?
Well, let me just speak to that point first. The reality is that we all get stuck
Yeah,
in life, times over.
true.
The other reality, which we often shun, is that when we're stuck, the one thing we need is the one thing we don't go for. We need somebody.
Wow.
We need somebody to help us get unstuck. And as simple as that situation was, he needed me to come say, hey, pull your shoe off.
Yeah.
What do I do when I get to that place? I've got to ask myself, how did I get there? What happened? And then I've got to be willing to bring someone into the equation to help me to clearly and logically see what's going on, and then how can I get out of that?
Wow.
The key here is not to get offended. You know, he almost got offended.
I can imagine.
Wasn't my fault, thank you.
Well, my fault you stuck.
but he almost got offended with me. But in the moment, he realized, I'm not coming to hurt you.
I'm coming to
I'm
help.
coming to help you.
Yeah. A more complicated situation that was in the book was when you were in Nairobi.
Whoa.
And I could tell the story, but I don't want
I'd like to hear your version.
No. It sounds like, reads like this. You're in a different country. You've been ministering all these other places.
Yeah.
You're in the bush country
Sure.
to go minister. And you're at the whim of the driver. And he wants to take another route versus the usual route.
Yeah.
And something said inside of you, we may not should go this route because the route looks a little sketchy.
Yeah.
It's like, I know my way.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, not even that far down to the path, the Jeep or whatever it was is now stuck. And the more you try to get out, you guys try to get out. And I felt sorry for your outfit. I think it got messed up because you had to get out in the rain.
I was out there in my boots, no work boots.
These kind of boots.
These
These are
boots.
expensive.
Listen, we're talking about the book. I was
Okay,
out
all right.
there. I was out there.
You know, Peter is watching.
Yeah. I was out there in my boots, man, trying to push this truck out. And here now is the reality. And I'm glad you went to that story. We're in Kenya. We've got to get to a particular place that's in the bush. We've got to come off the main road, and we've got to try and get there. As we start into that way, intuitively, there's a sweet lady in the truck who's telling us we don't need to go.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
there's some guys there like you.
It got real cloudy in here, didn't it?
who are saying, no, we can do this. And so we go on this road, which is really not a road, it's a footpath. We start down it.
Wow.
The road is telling us not to go, not to come, not to pass.
Because it's a footpath and you're in a truck.
Well, it's driven by the natives. It's common for them to drive on it.
Mm.
But, clearly we didn't need to do that because there had been a heavy rain and the road was muddy. And so we end up in a ravine or a ditch, and there we're spinning for quite some time. The lady suggests that we call for help. There's some guys standing on the side who want to help us, but they're not going to come because they want shillings, which is the Kenyan currency.
Mm.
And so they're going to wait for us to call. After a season of pushing and tugging,
And messing up nice
messing
boots.
up my boots, man.
Listen, I know how you feel about your boots.
Yeah, man. Messing up my boots.
Talking about the book now.
Yeah. After a season of messing up the book, up the boot. After a season of messing with that situation, then we call over for help, and these men come, and they push us out. There are a couple of things, though, I think we can learn from this story. First of all, that we get on a path, and we avoid the message that's screaming to us from the street.
Mm.
You know, there's a verse in the scripture that says wisdom cries out from the street. And that day, wisdom was
Was crying.
actually crying from the
Screaming.
literally screaming from the street. Don't come down. So we get stuck when we avoid the obvious things that are there speaking to us, oftentimes screaming to us. But the other thing is when we avoid the encouragement or the advice of someone not to do it, and that was the lady telling us not to go. And so we ended up in that situation needlessly. We finally got out of it, and we were able to move on.
But you wasted a lot of time
A lot of time.
because you were supposed to be at a certain spot. but-
Absolutely. We needed to be there, but we were behind. We ultimately continued on the path and found our way off so we could move on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So help us that are in the room where we've made the decision. We're on the path now,
Yeah.
but we may or may not have the currency to pay the help. And so now we're still spinning.
Yeah.
Because I think we've all been in a place where I could ask for help, but I don't want to spend that kind of currency. And the currency may not be in cash. Currency may be my pride.
Sure.
Currency may be the fact that I would ask you for help, but I asked you for help for last time, so you'll try to judge me. So talk to us about, I'm on the path. I made a decision. I'm already beating myself up because I probably shouldn't have, but I thought it was going to be a better way.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
I think at some point you've got to concede or you're going to stay there.
Wow.
You've got to open up for the help, whether it's help free or help that you have to pay for. You're going to have to concede, and I think that's what happened with us as men on that truck that day. There were 3 or 4 of us. There were 4 of us, actually. We couldn't move the truck. We had to concede. And I'm very glad that we did because not only were we able to pay our way out of that situation, but I was willing to give them all of my U.S. currency.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it took. But you got to finally get to a place where you say, I cannot do this by myself.
Wow.
I need help. And that's hard to ask, especially when you feel as though you're the one that imposed your situation. Deal with the pride. And I think we were dealing with a little bit of that as well.
Yeah.
Deal with the pride and ask for help. It may be in your best interest to pay rather than to stay stuck.
Yeah. But you got, I think even what you're saying, there must be a certain level of, like if you all had not gotten to a place of desperation, because sometimes we won't let go of our pride until we get to a place where, okay, I have no other options.
Sure.
I've exhausted all of my energy.
Yeah.
My clothes are soaked.
Yeah.
My boots are muddy.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I think every person that's ever been stuck, you only reach out for help when I can't do anything else. Like desperate times. It's a measure of, I think in certain disciplines they call it the pain threshold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like it hurts now.
Yeah.
Before it didn't hurt. It was
Yeah.
like, okay, I can deal with it.
Yeah.
I'm managing through. Now it hurts. And I'm sick of hurting.
Sure.
So I think even with that situation, I think when everybody got to a place where enough is enough.
Yeah.
Let's do whatever it takes to, and like you said, whatever money I have, matter of fact, you can have my next 2 honorariums. Just
Sure,
please.
Sure. Just take it. Just take it. And would you not know that within under a minute, we were out.
Wow.
What went on for probably a stretch of 25, 30 minutes when we were willing to concede, deal with our pride, with under a minute,
You're out
we were out.
because you asked for help.
We were bouncing down the road again.
Speaking of pain, here's a quote from the book. Lord, help me to feel enough pain to make me desire change, not just the appearance of change, but change at my very core.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to read it again because that was good. I got that from the book. Lord, help me to feel enough pain to make me desire change, not just the appearance of change. Like I see change, I want to change, but real change at the very core.
Yeah.
Talk about that quote and where that came
Yeah,
from.
absolutely. You know, I'm thinking as you read that of my dear mentor, Dr. Samuel Chan, who has written a book on pain. Leadership Pain is the name of the book, and he suggests in his book that if you're not bleeding, you're not leading.
Wow.
He ascribes that to every leader is going to have to deal with pain.
Wow.
It's a part of the process. And so out of that sense of understanding derives the quote that you just read. Something that we want to pray away, which is necessary. Here it is. I want to know the Father in the process. But the process is going to introduce me to pain. Pain at the core introduces brokenness. Brokenness makes way for the Lord and for the Holy Spirit now to get in and work with us around the issues by which we're stuck.
Because we're broken. Wow.
Yeah.
If you're not bleeding, you're not leading.
You're not, and so we could say it this way: if you're not bleeding, you're not living. It's really that simple. And this is especially important in some church traditions where we want to either pray all pain away,
Yeah.
or blame all pain on the devil,
That's good.
or someone else.
Or somebody else.
Yeah, which is usually our first go-to.
Versus I cut myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Another quote, and I could tell the tone or the tenor of this quote.
You're using
was
big words, sir.
tenor is 5 letters. Hell, you have. I love you so much, guy. Stop making me laugh, man. We're supposed to be serious. We're on camera. This quote says, "You have been true to your methods, your old methods that are no longer useful. You have allowed your convictions to become bad traditions that are no longer working." I'm going to read it again for the people in the back row. "You have been true to your methods, your old methods that are no longer useful. You have allowed your convictions to become bad traditions that are no longer working."
Yeah.
And what I got from that was many of us have a methodology, a pedagogy, a approach, a paradigm to life that may not necessarily be working, and we know it's not working, but we continue to do it because we have a conviction about it. Like, this all I know. Can I get somebody to say amen in the church? And what I find sometimes in talking to people as a pastor is that people most times revert back to the only thing they know. This is all I know. So if dysfunction is all I know, I'm functional in my dysfunction. You know, if this bad habit is all I know as a coping mechanism, I need to cope, so let me go back to what works for me. I'll reach for Jesus as long as Jesus is convenient for me to get to. I reach for deliverance as long as deliverance is convenient for me to get to. And though my method may not be working, it's my method right now. Talk to me about the other side. Walk through that quote that you had.
Absolutely. You know, I'm going to date myself here, but in 1981 when I
My God.
I know. When I stepped into my first pastorate, I stepped into something that is the picture of this quote. It was a church that had a 100-year history, had been doing what it had been doing for all of that time, a whole century. They had the method down, and they were literally stuck. Trying to get them to move forward was the most difficult thing to do. Rick Warren, the pastor of the Purpose-Driven Life, says that if everything around you is moving faster than what's happening within your church, then you're irrelevant. It is also true of our lives. If there's movement going on around you, and you're in the same place because you're stuck on a method, or the scriptures would give it to us as a tradition, then you're going to get stuck, and as a result, you're not going to move, and you're going to get frustrated with everyone around you. And here's what begins to happen. You start to blame, first of all, those persons around you, saying, you guys, you're always trying to do that new stuff. Why you want to do that new stuff? And the other thing is that you'll become cynical, and then on top of that, you'll look up, and everything about you and around you would have changed, and you'll still be in the same place thinking you're okay. So here's what you got to do. You got to understand that methods change. And if you're not willing to change your method, you're going to be stuck. Whether that's in your worship experience, whether that's in your day-to-day life, whether that's in career, whether that's in work, even in play, even in style. I look at you tonight. A part of what makes you relevant is how you dress. What if you had come out here tonight in a three-piece plaid suit with big bell bottoms on it?
I'd be setting a new trend.
You'd be setting a new trend. Not! Someone from the audience would surmise that dude is stuck. He's got a method.
Especially my wife. But go ahead.
Yeah. He's got a method. He's stuck on it. He's not willing to change. And so I'm looking at this church, 100 years, doing the same thing. The people were educated. All of them were graduate level degrees or more. But they were stuck on a method. It took us 2.5 years, close to 3 years. My wife is here tonight. She was there. It took us almost 3 years just to get them out of that to move them forward. The question came, why aren't people coming to the church? Are you serious? Why are people leaving the church? And we ask these questions about our lives as well. When we get into a method or behavior, and that has been our way for so long, first question we have to ask is that imposing on us a situation that's causing us to be stuck?
Talk about the balance to that. We've had great conversations of iron sharpening iron when
Sure.
it comes down to new school church versus old school.
Yeah.
What God is doing prophetically today and tomorrow versus what people are still holding to.
Yeah.
Talk about the balance in regards to being stuck, especially when it comes down to we can use the church, local church,
Yeah.
not necessarily the Catholic or the ecclesia, but the local church, especially the American local church, in regards to our methods, where one generation is saying, this is tried, true, and proven.
Yeah.
Another generation saying, yeah, we don't got to do it like that.
Yeah.
You talked about, and then you complicate this conversation by adding on the millennial factor that says, I just don't feel like doing it anymore, so just change. Whether it be, I was on this job for 6 months, I wanted it, now I don't want it anymore, so let's just move on.
Yeah.
It didn't work. So more specifically, how to land on one factor, what I'm hearing is you've been stuck because you've been doing this for so long.
Yeah.
But another thing sounds like you're stuck because you haven't given anything time enough to develop so that you don't get stuck, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
Talk about that balance when it comes down to, especially you travel the world. So just talk to us, whether it be from a church standpoint, from a Christian standpoint, in regards to the balance of what you're saying. Like the methods are outdated. If we brought a VHS, I don't even think we have do we have a VCR in the building? Even if you brought a CD,
Yeah.
I don't even think we're able to play CDs.
Yeah.
Do we have anything to play a CD on, Maurice?
Yeah.
So
I get that.
outdated technology
Sure.
that we can't do anything with.
Absolutely.
So if somebody said, hey, play my CD so I can dance, we'd be like, can we find it on YouTube?
Absolutely.
So talk about, I guess, that balance there, that dance.
Yeah, I hear two things there. This generational tension that we're dealing with right now, it's layered 5 times over. You got, your seniors, you got baby boomers, and you got millennials, my generation, and then you got
Speak those things that are not. Keep going. I love it.
X and Z's. And so everybody is trying to get their perspective in on what's good, what's not good, what's old, and what's new. I think actually Isaiah the prophet gives us great perspective on this and would help us to land in this place. The extreme is to want to push to one side or extremely to the other side, or
Wow.
extreme to the other. Either all of this or all of that. And yet it is Isaiah the prophet that reminds us that we ought to respect both the old and the new. There now I would impose upon your phraseology of balance. What is good and what does the old bring, and the wisdom from it that can be applied to what's new to
Wow.
move it forth. It is Jesus who refers back to this again. Isaiah, the prophet says, and behold, I will do
A new thing.
a new thing. You've read that. But it is also Isaiah the prophet who says, don't forget the old path. You see the dualism there.
Yeah.
And so both have to be regarded and embraced. The challenge is, what about the old path that no longer works? And you just kind of alluded to that a moment ago. When I started pastoring, the big thing was cassette tapes.
What's that? I'm kidding.
See? Exactly.
Pencil, turn it up so it doesn't
Yeah,
get.
absolutely. And they just run all into the car and just shred all over
Exactly.
the place. Well, I've got probably thousands upon thousands of those in my archive of the many messages I've preached over the last 42 years.
My God.
Okay? However, for me to come here tonight and say, thank you for letting me use your church and I want to play this piece here, you need to find me a cassette player. That's just not practical. And so to want to do something like that will put you in this whole conversation of being stuck that we're bringing. However, if I'm willing now to embrace the new and understand the importance of what technology does today, I actually then become more relevant to what the Father is doing in the earth now, and my ability to reach the world becomes more of a reality.
Wow.
So I think the danger here is for this layer of 5 generations to play against each other on old and new stuff. There are some things that are traditionally healthy for us.
That's the truth.
Something as simple as, how many of you brush your teeth? That's a tradition. May I suggest to you tonight, don't stop. Be a friend
Period.
to toothpaste. Be a friend to a toothbrush. How many of you take showers at least regularly, if not every day? I would suggest to you that that's a very positive and nice tradition. Please don't stop. That's important. So there's something old that we bring over into the new. It never gets old. Kindness. Kindness is an old virtue. It ought not ever get old. It ought to be as new as mercy. Every day you wake up, mercy is new.
That's good, man.
Kindness ought to be new every day. So there's some things that we don't want to escape from and say, well, I'm stuck. No, we need to be stuck in those things. But the ability to maneuver beyond certain methods, and you brought that word up earlier, methods that give me the ability to move beyond a certain place and expand and enlarge and do what I've got to do without being stuck in a particular place. That's important. Here's what I'm doing today. Again, my wife is here. In the 90s, in the decades of the 90s, we ministered to thousands, multiple thousands of people that came from around the world in something that we call Cause International. It was fascinating for many years over. Today, because I understand the need to adjust my method, I'm ministering to even a greater number of thousands around the world. I could just live in what was going on in the 90s and say,
gonna work,
that's
yeah.
good, man. Let's just stay here. Why not stay here? But no, I have to be willing to adjust. And I think it's true of any area in your life that if you really want to move forward, you've got to understand your relevance means that you've got to keep up with what's going on around you. And I'll just say it again, and it's Rick's quote, Rick Warren. If what's going on around you or in your community is changing faster than what's going on where you are, your church, your home, whatever, then you are slowly becoming irrelevant.
This is so good. Are you enjoying it? Oh my God, this is so good. Running out of time, and we got so much more to cover.
Yeah.
So I guess people gonna have to just buy the book to get
That's
the
a
rest
good
of it.
idea.
There's two things if we can. One is issues. How many have any kind of issues in your life?
Jesus.
You so eloquently labeled categorized some of the issues, whether it be moral, financial, psychological, relational, professional, medical. And in the book, you kind of talk about each one. So if you want to know about any of these, you got to get the book. Just give us a synopsis, a overall summary of issues, because I think everybody in the room's got some kind of issue that falls underneath one of these categories.
Yeah, yeah.
And these issues can get us stuck. So there is a dissonance because financially I could be moving,
Yeah,
but psychologically I could be stuck.
yeah,
Relationally, I could have it moving,
yeah,
but spiritually I could be stuck.
yeah. Yeah.
My medical health could be clean,
Yeah.
but my moral health could be
Yeah,
cancerous.
yeah, yeah.
Talk about issues.
Yeah, you just talked about every one of us in here, I think. It's true that from one extreme to the next, one thing can be working, the other not. I'm sitting in Dubai. I've been preaching in several nations. I've dropped over into Dubai for a couple of days to do something. And there's this indigenous couple there that's having a conversation. They're going back and forth from English to their native language.
Yeah.
And I'm intrigued. I'm just looking and listening because I had time.
Now that's good. People
Yes,
watch.
So I locked in, yeah. And ultimately, whatever they were discussing got so heated amongst themselves that she blurted out real loudly in English, "You got issues." And instantly, I wanted to know what are the
issues?
issues.
Right.
And you would want to know, too, if you were sitting where I was sitting. So I was waiting for them to talk about that in English, but they didn't quite go there.
They went right back to the native language, right?
Yeah. But the question that arose in my mind immediately is, what issues could she be talking about? What was she referring to when she said he has issues? Issues are part of what gets us stuck, whether they are any of those categories that you mentioned just a moment ago. And when we have these issues, then we must be willing to take them to the right places and the right people to get them seriously, and let me use a Latin word here, sincerely addressed. Meaning I'm not coming with any holes, any pretense, any falsehood. I really want my issues addressed. The vehement way that this lady with the issue of blood, which we would categorize as a medical issue, pressed her way to Jesus and would not stop until she touched him. And when she touched him, the issue that she had immediately dried up. I think that when we're facing issues in our lives, we've got to be desperate.
Wow.
I really do. You just got to get to a place where you've said, I've soaked in this long enough, and I'm desperate. I think about that probably 1,000,000 times over in my own life. The desperation that has come on me to say, Walter, you know what? This ain't going to cut it, man. And I was that person that you were talking about. I could step on a stage and preach paint off walls, go back to my room and deal with issues. But a desperation sets in that says, I can't keep doing this. And so I'm willing now to have that addressed. And I think opening up again to someone, not just anyone.
Right.
This is where now it gets real delicate, because if you are a loner and you feel you don't have to talk to anybody but Jesus, you're already in trouble.
You should say that one more time.
If you are doing this alone and you feel like you don't have to talk to anybody else but Jesus, you're already in trouble. No one is created or designed to be alone. And so I begin to understand the value of relationships. And it's the one thing that has kept the guy who's had scandal in his life, has kept him from becoming a scandal. Scandalous behavior, but never public scandal. Because there have been persons layered upon persons in my life who could help Walter with his issues. And some of those issues are issues where there's prayer and instant delivery. Some of those issues are there's prayer and talking and recovery over time. And I hate to sell this for some who would be highly revelatory tonight, but there's some issues that Paul suggests we will never get rid of. It's mastery, it's grace, it's faith, it's leaning on the Lord for his ability to carry us every day, and it's relationships to discuss those issues. And so we went over the issues when we bring people around. I have people at 5 layers in my life who I discuss. You do know we can't talk to everybody about everything.
I hope you do know that.
Yeah. So there are certain people who get in on the front row of my life, and we can talk about the deeper things. And those friends help me to survive whatever issues I'm dealing with.
That's good, man. That's good. I know we got to close out, so I'll let you
Wow.
pick which.
Wow.
There's a couple of. You're so beautiful. That's why I love you. My wife.
I was hoping you weren't telling them that.
That would be scandalous.
You would have issues.
Yeah, I've definitely had issues that would be dealt with by the time I got home. There was a couple of different moments in the book where I could tell your heartstrings were pulled. One was your Uncle Al,
Wow, my cousin.
Cousin Al,
Wow.
and then also Little Riley, which I never knew there was a Little Riley.
Yeah.
Rocky Mount, North Carolina.
You got it, man.
And I could tell one was a symbol of hope
Yeah.
and victory and testimony.
Yeah.
The other was a symbol of it never moved on and it only died out.
Yeah.
You can choose which one if you want to combine those,
Sure.
and then we'll open up for questions and kind of go from there.
Yeah,
But,
you know, it's interesting that you bring Al up because I actually just met with Al on this past Saturday. He came to Charlotte. Al is my first cousin. You'll read about him in the book. Had been stuck for 30 plus years in a drug addiction, couldn't get out of it. We grew up as kids. And we're having this conversation about how he got stuck. I'm in Germany walking through the airport, and I get this call from Al, and he's sharing with me what has happened after being in New York all of these years, moving from North Carolina, and being stuck in that cycle, that vicious cycle of addiction. And tears poured in my eyes as he tells his testimony of how he gets out of that. He told me just this past Saturday, he said, you know, Walter, here's the deal. I could have gotten out of that earlier. I just didn't want to.
wow.
He says, I was stuck because I didn't want to get out. He says, they would take me to these meetings like AA and others, and we would go through all the processes and steps. He says, now I would come out of the meeting and go around the corner and go right back to doing what I was doing. He said, but one day I woke up and decided, I don't want to do this anymore.
Wow.
And that was the change for his life. You talk about Little Raleigh, my community. I was really excited about going back there. Had this premonition that I should go back because all I could remember was what it was like in the 70s.
Ice cream. You
and
talking about
80s.
ice
Yeah,
cream?
the ice cream, 3
Playground.
stores, you know, a 5-star park with everything on it. A program in the summer that fed all the kids. It was just a lot going on in the 80s there. I loved it. And so my thought was, let me go back and see what's happening now. My impression was that it would be far better than it was in the 80s. Only to discover that when I rode back into the community, I found the community in ruins. What was no more. The best way I could describe it is most things had stopped in time.
Wow.
They had gotten stuck. And my heart dropped to the floor. I was broken as I was dropping. In fact, I pulled over to see if my GPS had taken me to the
wrong street,
community.
yeah.
Yeah, because it was just that disastrous. And what I found was that because they chose to do nothing. You see, you can choose to do nothing and get stuck. They chose to do nothing. And because they chose, meaning the people of that community, chose to do nothing, the place was lying in ruins. And it hurt me to my heart. I guess the challenge I would give to folk today is you got to do something. I cannot discern where you are, why you're there, or even how you got there. But the practical advice that I could give you is that you got to do something. Because if you don't do anything at all, chances are you'll look up 6 months, a year, 2 years from now, and essentially you'll be stuck. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I would encourage folk to get the book. It's a lot of stories, as you've said, that will minister, that will drive home some realities for them. And I've tried to, by the instruction of the Holy Spirit, to write this so it speaks to everyone. I was talking to a Hall of Famer this morning online on the phone as he was speaking to many of the Hollywood stars and all of these folk who have gotten stuck after they came out of their spotlight in their career.
Wow.
In pro
Athletes.
athletes or those who have been actors. So that's all that was on the phone. And here's what I kept hearing over and over and over again from these people. If we were to call their names, you would instantly recognize them. Here's what they were saying to the Hall of Famer and to myself: but I'm stuck. I'm stuck. And they were bringing up all of these reasons that they had gotten stuck. And finally, the Hall of Famer says, well, what are you going to do? Because you got to do something.
Got to do something.
You got to do something. You can't continue to hash over where you are and play the blame game. You know, there's a lot of that going on these days. But you got to do something. And the moment he said that, as simple as that line is, the moment he said, you've got to do something, within the silence that's set on the line, I sense breakthrough. About 2 minutes afterwards, here's what I heard: weeping. And I knew in the moment that somebody was making up their mind.
I got to do something.
I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge I would leave our audience with today, and everyone that's going to hear this, is that you got to do something. I think the first something is get some help. Ask somebody. You cannot get out by yourself. Ask somebody for help. And if they're not the person, perhaps they can point you to someone who is. But it's pointless to keep trying to go at this by yourself. And then secondly, allow yourself to get to a place where I talk about those three things. You got to confess, you got to confront,
Right.
and you might even have to cry. That's how you begin to address hurt. Confess, it's a word in the Greek which means to say it as it is. Don't talk around it. Just say, this is my issue. Confessing is not confronting, though. Confessing is just speaking. Confronting means I address it. I get in there and deal with the particulars. And of course, that's going to bring some tears. But tears and crying has been proven now scientifically to really break some things in us and move us in places that we couldn't get to otherwise. So I'd say to address the hurts, start there.
That's powerful. Clap your hands for Dr. Boston. Stuck. Move on.